Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of City Council. Grace Williams, I'm a Chino resident, former South Ontario resident. This council has heard a tremendous amount of testimony and information regarding Harvest's negligence in complying with California's environmental laws and the city's local CEQA guidelines. But I want to talk about something more personal. I have a bachelor's degree in urban and regional planning, civil engineering, a doctorate in public policy, both from USC. I did my undergrad work at USC, so I lived in South Central for a while before moving to Ontario. And Ontario is where I had my kids and raised my family. A little over a week ago, I spent time with Ed Haringa and Sam Sosa of South Ontario, both of whom live on, own, and operate dairy farms directly next to our Harvest project site. My time spent with them was eye-opening. So you've heard in these hearings that there are 8 compost facilities in the area. But what hasn't been disclosed is that all 8 of these facilities are within 2.5 to 3 mile radius in South Ontario. Every 3 blocks we drove and turned around, we hit a composting facility. It was unbelievable. So I realized during my time with Ed and Sam that I moved out of South Central to be next door to South Compost Central. And South Compost Central is a place that this council created in our backyard. 8 compost facilities, most of them non-compliant with their cow recycle permits because they stockpile materials that are not even on their permits. Compost stockpiles that encroach into public streets and private properties. All this within a 2.5 mile radius. And you want to consider an additional composting facility, a 35-acre facility with 4 cow recycle permits. These facilities are not properly enforced. If they were, this council wouldn't have needed to adopt Resolution 2013-127 for compost facilities. The resolution that you created is a band-aid to silence community concerns on the hazards of compost facilities to surrounding businesses and residents. The resolution that is failing the community on this project because your staff didn't even follow it. The resolution required a traffic study. Where is it? If your staff can't interpret the resolution, and this body can't interpret the resolution, then guess what? It's a bad resolution. How about this for a resolution? Say no to more composting. This project was continued to March 1st to help Harvest, not the community. Mayor, you stated that if Harvest failed to meet the community, then they had put a nail in their coffin. And here we are on the 5th, no community outreach, and they want to continue the hearing. This is a game to them, and your direction is a joke, because they didn't even follow it. Will you stand by your comment and put the nail in their coffin tonight? Will this council fight for its policies on land use and in the environment and fight for the rights of its citizens to live in a healthy community? If you continue this temporary project today, then your answer is no. If you approve this project at some point in the future, your answer is no. Then I would say forget the CEQA lawsuit. We need new council members on the dais because we need leaders that are serious about saying what they mean and mean what they say. Deny this project tonight and protect our collective communities. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rob Vanderhoevel. Tough to follow. Mayor Leon and members of the City Council, Milk Producers Council, who I represent, continues to oppose the permit application before you this evening and urges the denial of Harvest Power's appeal. We continue to believe that the city attorney is just plain wrong in his previous interpretation of Resolution 2013-127. We continue to believe that a water treatment facility right next door to this proposed project constitutes a sensitive land use and is cause alone for denying this application. We continue to believe that the residential community less than a half a mile from this proposed project is again a violation of Ontario's resolution. However, it is clear that the council is simply content on relying on the city attorney's unchallenged assessment at this point. So while we will fight that fight at some point, it apparently will not be tonight. Instead, tonight I want to focus on another issue, fairness. My fellow concerned members who you've heard from tonight of the community have stayed closely engaged in each step of this process and followed the rules to appropriately voice our opposition. We've asked for no favors and no special consideration from the city. When we prevailed on 2 occasions, and those decisions were both appealed by the applicant, we didn't complain, but we continued to show up whenever and wherever the city told us to. Our opposition has been clearly stated, based on facts, and consistent. On the other hand, Harvest Power has shown little to no regard for our concerns. The most recent example was a directive by Mayor Leon at the March 1st council meeting to meet with the community over the next 30 days and explain why their operation is different from the others. That directive has been ignored. The city, too, has gone to great lengths to facilitate this project. Last month, the council took the what seemed to me, unusual act of keeping a hearing open for more than 30 days to avoid triggering a requirement that you rule on this appeal. City staff also took the initiative to actually secure a room at the Ontario Police Department to hold a community meeting. I've been in close contact with the city, interested in when this meeting would be, and proposed available dates to Harvest Power for such a meeting. Despite the city's attempt to bend over backwards to facilitate this application, Harvest Power didn't even attempt to schedule this community meeting. Now the applicant is asking the city to bend the rules even more by continuing to keep this hearing open for another 60+ days. Mayor Leon's directive last month included what would happen if that directive was not followed by Harvest Power, that he would come back on April 5 and vote against this appeal. We strongly urge the full council to follow that lead, reject any extension, and uphold the previous denials of this application. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Wendy Van Dam.
This is for her.
Thank you.
I'm saving her some time.
Thank you. And some reaching, sorry.
Okay. Good evening. I want to submit for your consideration some photos that were taken from my home and dairy of a fire at a green waste facility on Thursday, March 31st. As you can see, this facility is just down the street from my home and dairy. The fire started at approximately 7 p.m. and was burning right across the street from pastures where we have animals out to graze usually. Thankfully, the fire department responded almost immediately. Thank you, since a lot of you are here. And they were able to quickly get the fire under control because there was an employee still on property who could use the excavator for them. Like it was said earlier, heavy machinery is usually needed to put those out. However, it was a stressful evening for myself and my husband since we have 2 very small children at home. Fortunately, there were no losses to other properties. Also, fortunately, there were no winds that night. Had conditions been different, the situation could have been very different. One spark or ember from that fire carried over the berm could have burned our dairy and our home. I believe this is an excellent example of the potential risks that a green waste facility poses. I would also like to express the fact that at the last meeting, this council gave these contractors and owners 30 days to reach out to the citizens and community of Ontario to explain how they plan to keep us safe and how they plan to maintain the communities immediately surrounding their proposed facility. In that time, they have done absolutely nothing to reach out, not even, at the least, to reach out to the community and say, we're sorry, but we need more time. I feel this shows how little care and respect they truly have for Ontario's citizens. And that's something that this council needs to seriously take into consideration tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.